Hi, everyone. Welcome to Shot Callers, a Storied Rivals podcast where we interview high school coaches in the area. We're starting in the MVL, the Muskingum Valley League. I'm Will Ford, joined by the small school division champion in the MVL, Kevin Board with the New Lexington Panthers. Coach, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it. How's your summer going? I know you're probably we're about a month away from the season starting. So did you go on any vacations this summer?
Hey, well, thanks for having me on. No, I had a couple of small trips. Wife and I took a small trip to Pittsburgh and Amish country for our anniversary, and then we went and watched the Cubs game. But nothing big. We just had our first kid there in March, so he's a little young for a big vacation yet. So we just took a couple of small trips here and there just to kind of break it up a little bit.
Oh, congrats on having your first child. That's
Thank you, man.
that's
Appreciate it.
pretty amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
and to have that also like in the middle of the summer, like, off-season football, like a lot of stuff's going on for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, no, he's been to the gym and into the field a whole lot so far, and I think he's probably getting used to that environment, which is good.
Yeah. So MVL Small School Division champions in 2022, one of the more successful seasons that New Lex football has had in a long time. But what does the offseason look like this year for you? Like, what's the strength and conditioning look like? Is there a lot of scrimmages, 7-on-7s? What's been your offseason like for your Panthers as you get ready for the 2023 campaign?
That's been a really good offseason for us. Our superintendent, Mr. Coffey, does a fantastic job with wanting the best for our athletes. So our athletes all lift during the school day, so there's no after school workouts for our teams. So they lift during the school day. So our kids have consistently lifted now year round for the last 2 years, which I think has been really, really good for us. We just got our new turf put in, so our spring looked a little different. Typically, we're out there with the quarterbacks and receivers early, going some open field stuff, just throwing and getting those guys back into it. But with that, we really didn't have that available to us. So we did a lot of film watching with the quarterbacks, myself and quarterbacks. And then now we've gotten into our, June. We spend most of our time just lifting and speed training, working to prepare for the season. Then July is really when we use our contact days. We used our first week last week. Had a 7-on-7 Friday and Saturday, and competed well. We went 8-1 in our 9 games, so we competed well. And now we're into our second week of contact days here before we take a couple of days off before two-a-days start. But it's been a good off season. I've been really happy with a lot of the progress that some of our guys have made. We've gotten a ton stronger. The biggest thing with our guys coming into this year is we're going to have a lot of new guys. Obviously,
Yeah.
the group we had last year. So it's just getting some guys to step up into some roles. But I think we've done pretty well so far as the summer started.
Well, so this summer, you actually got to coach in the 41st annual Muskingum Valley versus Licking County AllStar Game. That was a game you were supposed to be a part of in 2020, and then we had the pandemic and all that, and that obviously shut things down. But what was that experience like to I mean, that game it kind of kicks off the new football season. It's summer football. You're getting ready for the fall. What was it like to be a part of that game? Not only win the game, but just be a part of it, coaching your guys and coaching some of the other great players that we have in this area.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. I was thankful for our guys, for our staff to be able to have that opportunity to coach it, and for our players to be able to play in and have one more game with those guys, the greats that we have in our league, to be able to kind of see them in practice, how they prepare and then play. And so we've actually been referencing that game a lot this summer as we talk to our young guys about, this is something we did in the All-Star game. This is how we were able to do it and how those guys prepared. So I think it's allowed us to kind of use that to really work with our kids because it was a different type of thing. You're coaching a bunch of guys that know how to play, and you're just putting a scheme in for them to be able to execute it versus spend a lot of time teaching the fundamentals. Whereas now with a bunch of freshmen, new guys, sophomores, even you spend a lot of time teaching. So it's a little different, but it was a
Right.
really cool experience. Had a lot of fun doing it. And I know our staff really enjoyed the opportunity to do that as well. And I think there was some cool friendships made, some good relationships, and obviously winning is a lot more fun than losing. So it's nice to be able to
Sure.
come away with a win.
So this year you're going into year 5 coaching the Panthers. Is your coaching philosophy any different now compared to when you took over the program in 2019? Like when you look back, is there how do you think you've evolved as a coach from 2019 to now going into 2023 in your 5th year?
I've definitely evolved. I would say that, I look back to like even my first year as a head coach back in 2014 or 15, when I was 24 years old, and just some of the things you think you should do and things you can do, and then you realize, oh no, 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 we can't do that.
Right.
So I think that um, the biggest thing is just realizing that the player is the most important thing. It's not about this scheme or that scheme. I think that everybody has great schemes that they believe in. That's why they run it. Whether it's wing T or spread or 3-4 or 4-2, whatever that may be. I think the most important thing is the players, and making sure that they have a great 4-year experience, but also putting them in positions to be successful, and trying to find what are their individual skill sets and how can we utilize that. Obviously we
Right.
have a base offense and a base defense that we feel strong about, that we feel like we can do some good things with and can accomplish. But if our players don't understand it, can't comprehend it, or we're calling plays that we think are good, but in turn are not good because the players' skill sets don't match that, I don't feel like we're helping those guys. So I feel like we've like offensively, I used to have you see a cool play on Saturday that Alabama ran or Clemson's like let's throw it in the playbook, and I feel like
Yeah.
the more years I go, the more I take out because I just feel like there's so many. Every year I run a postseason analysis where how many times did we run each play, how many yards did we get per play, and so like we'll see plays that we ran 3 or 4 times that to us was a base play during install, and then we ran it 3 or 4 times like that. It's a whole lot of time and reps that you're spending on something that you don't necessarily use a lot. So I've taken out more than I've put in the last 4 years just to again just get a ton more reps at those base concepts, and then like I said, the base thing, just putting kids in position to be successful. Um, though year to year we may look different. Last year we were heavy 11 personnel on offense. This year we've got 2 really good backs that will probably be a lot more 20 personnel. So it's our base is going to look different, but for us the scheme hasn't changed significantly. It's just putting those
Right.
guys in a little bit position.
So you said you started coaching in 2014. You said the age of 24, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what
My
got
my first year as head coach was I was 24, I believe.
what got you, I guess, into coaching at that young of an age? Because I mean, at that point, you're not far removed from college. Like, is that something that you always saw yourself doing? Like after, like once you hit that, like, did you always see yourself becoming a coach? Like, how was there a moment where you were like, I would love to kind of get into coaching, lead these young men, lead a high school football program? Like, kind of walk me through, I guess, that part of your life where you realized that coaching was a possibility for you.
I think back in high school, honestly, I really the coaching was what I wanted to do, and then obviously teaching I think was something I enjoyed, school and enjoyed the classroom, and I did well in the classroom. So it kind of fit easily, and like I said, coaching was really where I wanted to get into. I remember drawing up plays when I was a junior or senior in high school. I had a notebook just full of plays I'd draw up in the middle of history class. I probably should have been paying a little bit more attention to it. But that was just something that I just enjoyed doing. I really enjoyed like the schematics of things and learning how plays and offenses worked. I remember looking online and studying wing T and spread and learning, just trying to learn as much as I could. And then after it was my junior year, my third year of college, I had a heat stroke during during two a days at West Liberty, um, and I just had a lot of trouble getting back. I finally got cleared. I come back the very first day. I come back as like I got cleared on a Wednesday. We were leaving Thursday for a trip to Southern Connecticut, and we were going to leave Thursday morning. So, coach said, "Well, come to walk through tomorrow morning, and you'll go." And so we had a little walk through Thursday morning. I did some running Wednesday night because I had been out for so long. I couldn't get cleared because my blood pressure was way off. My numbers were separating. It was just weird. We couldn't figure out what was wrong. And about the third route in, I broke my foot.
Wow.
So there goes that year. So I work all winter just trying to get everything back, and then in spring ball I was having a lot of issues where I was still passing out and having some difficulties. So I just decided to talk with my family. I met with my head coach, and I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I knew the NFL was not my path. Well, obviously, I mean I probably could have, but decided that it wasn't my path.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to get into coaching, so I kind of stayed on and kind of worked as a GA, but not a GA because I was still a student. But just kind of
Right.
helping with drills and learning from the college coaches, learned both sides of the football, and then got a assistant job my first year. Moved around, and then I just there was a job come open, and I felt like I had some really good influences. See you, buddy. Some really good coaching influences in my life, and I think I saw what success looked like, and I felt that. I thought, shoot, I think I could be a head coach, and so I applied at Petersburg High School in West Virginia. So I applied for the head coaching job, but I didn't know where the school was. Like that was kind of a funny thing to me. So then when they called me and it's like, hey, we want you to come for an interview, I kind of had to find out where that school was. But
Yeah.
spent 4 years there. We first 2 years was the first back-to-back winning seasons they had in 2 decades, and then the fourth year we went to playoffs for the second time in school history. And then I was able to make the jump here to New Lex. So I've learned a ton. Obviously, this will be my ninth year as a head coach, 11th year as a coach in general. So I definitely feel like I've grown a lot since I first started, and I've learned a ton from the coaches I've been around.
Yeah. So moving into this year now in 2023, your team kind of becomes the hunted, I guess, instead of the hunters in the MVL small school division. So defending a championship, I mean, it's harder than sometimes chasing one. Is trying to keep everyone else from taking what you have. So how do you keep that, like, I guess, that hunter like mentality where your team is chasing the title again and not, I guess, playing to not lose the title?
I think that we as a team, we have our goals that we have each year. We want to win week one. We want to win the small school MVL championship, and we want to beat our rivals. Then we want to go to the playoffs. So our team goals aren't going to change from year to year. That's our expectation. And the first 2 years that we had the small school, I thought the first year we competed well. We lost to Meadowbrook, and obviously they had a phenomenal team that year, but. That's our goals year in and year out. So I don't. Our expectation doesn't change. But this year we've got we graduate 14 seniors. We lose 10 offensive starters and 8 defensive starters. So we have a lot of new guys. But we had a successful year on JV. Those guys went 8-1. With their only loss to Tri Valley by I think a touchdown. So they competed really well. So it's really just getting some of those guys to step up into some roles and move up from that JV mentality. Now you're a Friday night player. It's been a lot. It's been a lot of fun. Last year I think we kind of expected that we should have been the top dog. Um, I know that West obviously is going to compete for the small school title this year. They bring a lot of guys back. Morgan is very tough. Coshocton had a lot of young guys last year. So did Meadowbrook, and so did Crooksville. So I think that the small really should be a battle this year. But like I said, our expectation is we want to win that each year. So we don't want to change that from year to year. Like, well, we're a better team this year, so let's compete for it. Next year, we're not going to be. So that's not a goal that we have. We want to set our goals high and work towards them. But we talked about this year's group. You guys helped to play some of those games last year, but there's not a whole lot of touchdowns coming back. There's not a whole lot of yards coming back. There's only a few tackles coming back. So those things that those guys achieved last year was last year. And so we're just having some guys step up and really challenging them more so than anything, that we need some guys to step in and fill those vacancies.
Yeah, yeah, and a couple of the guys, like you had some very productive guys on offense last year, like Lucas Ratliff, your quarterback, Hunter Rose, your running back, who I mean, he had over 1,700 all-purpose yards, 20 touchdowns. He's also one of your best tacklers on your defense. So how do you go about, I guess, kind of finding the guys, calling on guys to kind of step into those roles, and obviously not ask them to be those players, be their own players, but still allow your offense to be as productive as it was last year, and then your defense still be as strong as it was?
It's just getting guys to step up. I don't think Carson Kellogg got a lot of running touches for us last year at running back behind Hunter. He's coming back as a junior, had a really good track campaign. And like I said, he got the 2 reps last year. So now he's stepping up into the starter. Jerick Bragland comes back as a leader outside of the receiver. He's the only offensive starter coming back. But just like I said, we have a system. We've got an offensive system that we believe in that has base concepts that we run at our JV level, and we feel like those guys just now have to make that step. But we don't try to say like, hey, you need to be Tatum Toth, the most decorated receiver in the NBL history. We want you to
Right.
be your player, and that's what I kind of going back to what I said earlier, that we just want to put our guys in the best position as possible to be successful. If there's things that this guy doesn't do well, maybe a second guy does. I think that's one thing we've talked about as an offensive staff this year, is that at positions we may want to utilize 2 guys to fill that role, just because one guy, for Tatum's backup, for example, we've got Caleb back, a senior, tremendous vertical threat that can run really well. But we also have a junior, Corey Adam, who's a really strong, a little smaller, a little bit wider receiver that, he makes a lot of catches underneath kind of like Tatum did. Tatum did a little bit of both, whereas I feel like those two kind of excel in not singular areas. They both can do both things, but I feel like Caleb can help us with certain things. Corey can help us with certain things. So just trying to figure out what they do, who can help us in what way, and then kind of as coaches now, let's make sure that we're putting those guys in position. So um, defensively, we've got to same as offense. We got to get a lot of new guys, a lot of opportunities, a lot of reps. So as we head into two-a-days and getting ready for our scrimmages, up front is really where our biggest question mark will be. I think our skill guys through 7-on-7 are getting a ton of reps. So our line is really the guys that we need to get to gel on both sides. If we can be good up front, I think the rest takes care of itself. I really believe that. I think if you have a great line and a bad running back, they'll make him look good. But if you've got a poor line and a great running back, I think his skill level, his production drops off because he doesn't have anybody in front of him. So
Right.
we always talk with our guys that those five up front on offense and the three for us on defense, those guys are what makes everything go. Hunter was a great linebacker because Michael Vernon, Zane Pletcher, and Zach Robinson were tremendous defensive linemen for us. So we want to preach those guys in the trenches are the most important position on the field for us. And like I said, this year we got to replace 5 offensive linemen and 3 defensive linemen. So that's the biggest piece of competition right now is trying to figure out which of those guys is going to rise to the top and be a varsity guy for us.
Right, right. So looking forward to the schedule then this year. I mean, is there a game on your schedule that you have circled? I mean, of course you play to win every game. You want to be league champs, all that stuff. But is there a game you look at every year and say, like, we could lose every game this year, but there's this one game on the schedule. We have to win this game. And is there a game like that on your schedule, or do you really just take it like week by week, the opponent that's in front of you?
I'm really. I know that the New Lex faithful would say that Crooksville and Sheridan are those 2 games, right? Those are the rivalries, the Perry County rivals that they call it the Perry County Super Bowl. That if you go 2 for 2, you're the Perry County champions. But obviously we don't play Miller, but those 2. But me as a coach, I've always felt like you can't look so far down the road that you're missing 2 or 3 opportunities in front of you. Our most important game, right, to me is Fairfield Union, week 1. If we can win week 1. I think a lot of times that momentum will carry you to week 2 and on, right? But I also feel that if you're unsuccessful week 1, because all summer you're talking about, we got to beat Fairfield Union, and so you spend more time talking about that game than any game, and so when you put so much of yourself into that one game, and then you're not successful in week 1, I think you have a hangover in week 2 sometimes because we should have beat them, we should have done this, we should have done that. So I truly do preach week 1. We want to be 1-0 at the end of the night, and we'll get to Sheridan, we'll get to Crooksville, we'll get to West, we'll get to Tri-Valley, we'll get to those guys when we get to them. But when you start looking ahead 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even sometimes even just 1 week, I think that's when you can have some stumbles and stuff, especially with a team like we have this year that's young and inexperienced. We really need to take it week by week and let's focus on how can we be successful this week, and then after each week, how can we improve? And then, like I said, we don't see our rivals until the end of the season anyway. So, West has been back and forth the last 2. I think that's becoming Coach Brownrigg does a phenomenal job, and I think he's one of the best coaches we have in our league. And I think he's really got West primed to do some big things. And I think the last 2 years has been back and forth. So I think that's a game that really kind of won the MVL for us last year since they were the runner-up. So I think that's a game that I think some guys have is some excitement and and knowing that they have a lot of guys coming back, that they're probably the preseason favorite. We don't do polls or anything like that, but with the guys they have coming back and finishing runner-up last year, I would say that they're the favorite to win. So we're going to take it week by week.
You mentioned Fairfield Union, first week of the year. What have they done, I guess, over the last couple of years that kind of gives you like that you really got to prepare for? Is there something that gives you a little bit of trouble where you got to get your guys to do this or do that offensively or defensively? Like, what is kind of the game plan, I guess, as you approach Fairfield Union? We've got about a month until the season starts. What's your game plan looking like for them?
Well, the last couple of years, man, they've just been so big up front. They've they were a single wing team on offense. They lined up foot to foot, 2 tight ends, a fullback, a running back, and their quarterback. I mean, they were the true single wing, and they were just foot to foot and a lot of line. Like we are not blessed with a ton of large linemen. Our linemen are lean and quicker than they are bigger and huge, right? And so size-wise, we were always at a disadvantage. No matter if we see a team, Sheridan's a team that has a lot of big linemen, Morgan, a lot of big linemen. So we really just preach, win the trenches. They have a new head coach this year, so we haven't seen any film on them. Their athletic director, I believe, took over for Coach Krupla. He moved on and is now assisting at Bloom Carroll. So we'll have to wait and kind of see with those guys. So like I said, with ours, I really feel like if we execute our game plan at a high level and execute our schemes, it truly shouldn't matter. If you're playing a wing tee, a spread team, an I formation, power I, if you're doing what you do well and improving on what you do well, I think that week by week you'll have some small adjustments and tweaks. But the grand scheme of things, I think that if you do you well, I think the rest takes care of itself. But so we haven't really started preparing for those guys. We're really just trying to get everything installed. But when we get into August, we don't prep for Riverview or Nelsonville. We're just continuing to run our base offense and defense, and then once we get our schemes, obviously put in. We have a heavier package we put in for teams. I think the new coach, from what I understand, is a wing tee guy. So getting some film on them early and being able to start preparing for what they do. But right now we haven't seen that in with the guys he has there. He may be the same thing. I may have been wing T, but with the kids that we have, we may have to do this. So until we see some film on them, we really don't know. Right now we're just focused on improving us and getting everything installed.
Awesome, Coach. Coach, I really do appreciate your time joining us on Shot Callers. And best of luck this year, man. You guys were a great team last year. Looking forward to what you guys do this year.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate what you guys do for all the teams in the area. You guys do a phenomenal job.